Hi everyone! I think we're live on both Instagram and YouTube as we speak. So thank you for joining for another astrological filled evening. Let's give people a couple of minutes to join. Let me know where you are tuning in from. Let me know if you can hear me properly because I have no clue if you can. So I would appreciate, yes, Rux, we can hear you. You're not speaking in the wind. And yeah, let me know where you are tuning in from. I'm based in London, obviously. Hi, Alex. Hi, Cole. Hi, Leah. Hi, everyone. Hi, Dan. Thank you. Thank you all for joining. Hi, Laria. Hello, Massachusetts. Hi, Tara. Hi. Hi, Susan. I hope you're well. Oh, hello from Birmingham. Yeah, you're actually really close, Polka. Christina, hi. Hi from London. Hello to Serbia. Hello to Kelsey from Ohio and the MTLC City from Toronto, Canada. Nova Scotia. Oh, nice. Hello from Manchester. Hi, Farouk. Hi. Across the pond in New York. Oh, gosh. I hope you guys are well over there. Sound is good. Yes. Amazing. I love to hear that. Hi, Joanna. Hi, Georgie. Georgie from Romania. I'm actually from Romania, to like all those of you who are joining for the first time, FYI. Hello, Michael from Chicago. Ohio again? We've got quite a few people from Ohio, it seems. Hello, Infinite Being from Italy. Nice. Tara, I absolutely feel you. It's nice to sneak in a live stream in between Zoom calls at work and so on. London. Alex is in London. Yes. Very happy to see you all as well. Hello, my dear sister. My sister has also joined. Hi, Miruna. Oregon. Yes. Welcome. Welcome. Hi. Ilaria, I love your name. I'm honored. Hello, Maria. Hi. Thank you for joining. Oh, hi. Oh, yes. Ohio seems to be the top location that people are joining from today. Oh, hi. Hi, MLC from Berlin. I hope you don't mind me saying hello to everyone because I just love connecting with you guys before we actually start talking astrological stuff. And I love hearing where you're all tuning in from because everything feels, I don't know, a lot more global. And it feels like the reach of what we're doing here is wider. And I'm very excited about that. Hello, Latana from Montreal. Hi, Camelia. Hi, Anna from Russia. Hello, Carol from Poland. Thank you for joining. Alabama, USA representing. Yes, that's what we like to hear. Thank you. I hope all you guys are well. I'm gonna start off with the same phrase that I start off my emails lately. I hope you are all healthy and safe, you and the family and everyone else. I'm imagining that is I'm hoping and imagining that's the case for all of you. Tilla is saying hello to Max from Brunei. Hi, Edward. Hi, Tina from New York. So, again, thank you for joining, and let us all start talking about aspects in astrology. So today, as you've probably noticed already, we are going to be talking about two major aspects in astrology: the conjunction aspect and the opposition aspect. Now, first and foremost, what are aspects and why should you care about them? Everyone has aspects in their natal chart. If you don't know what your natal chart looks like, I actually recommend going to alabit.com/free chart to generate your natal chart. But you can use basically every natal chart generator online. They're all free. All you need to do is put in your date, time, and place of birth. And yes, it's important that you do know your time of birth, so that you can see what your birth chart looks like. And for those of you who haven't done this before, the birth chart looks like a circle. It's literally a circle. And it's divided into multiple sections, which are called houses. Everyone has 12 houses in their natal chart and 10 planets in the natal chart. Now, between these planets in the natal chart, between these planets that we all have them somewhere, certain angles are formed, certain relationships between them. So they may be 90 degrees apart. They may be 135 degrees apart. They could be 180 degrees apart. And that's what we call aspects. So they are the angles, the mathematical angles between planets in the natal chart. Now, today we're only going to be focusing on two of these: the conjunction and the opposition. So I'm going to be taking questions after I talk you through what the conjunction and the opposition represent in the natal chart. And I'm hoping you can tell me what conjunctions and oppositions you have in your chart so we can discuss and see how they manifest in your life. And I'm very excited to hear how you have been experiencing them. Now, let us kick it off with the theory. You guys know me. I love my theory. I love talking about what stuff means. So let's start off with the one and only conjunction. Now, as we've mentioned before, your natal chart is a circle, right? So the conjunction is the division of the circle by 1. So planets that are in conjunction are very close to each other. They are in the same sign, and they are no more than 8 degrees apart. So let's say that you've got your sun at 21 degrees of Sagittarius, and you've got your moon at 29 degrees of Sagittarius. That's what we would call a conjunction. So you have a conjunction between your sun and your moon. Or let's say you've got Mercury at 0 degrees of Aquarius and Saturn at 5 degrees of Aquarius. That's a conjunction between Mercury and Saturn. I actually have a conjunction between Mercury and Saturn in my chart in Aquarius. So as long as you've got two planets in the same sign, no more than 8 degrees apart from each other, you can absolutely say that you have a conjunction between those planets. Now, the number of degrees that we allow, so these 8 degrees that we allow between planets, is called an orb. You could absolutely have Mercury and Saturn, or any other two planets, at 0 degrees of the same sign. So they don't have to necessarily be 8 degrees apart, but they can be up to 8 degrees apart. I hope that makes sense. Let me know if I'm explaining it right. I really want you to understand what this is about, and then for us to be able to have an astrological conversation. Hi, Madeline. Hi, Adelina. Thank you for joining. Now, the conjunction aspect happens between planets in the same sign. Therefore, it's an aspect of oneness. It's an aspect of unity. In the exact conjunction, both planets occupy the same point in the natal chart, so in the circle, and they appear together in the same spot. So they seem to be they create the illusion of one larger planet. They're very, very close together. Therefore, the energies of these two planets manifest together, manifest in unity. They manifest as a third energy, a bigger energy that comprises the energy of both planets. The conjunction can happen between planets that are indeed in the same house, but they don't have to be. It's not mandatory for them to be in the same house. What is mandatory is for them to be no more than 8 degrees apart. So you can have your sun in the first house at 29 degrees of Aquarius, and then you can have your moon in the second house at 2 degrees of Pisces. We would also call that a conjunction. So that's a very good question, Frenchie. Two planets can be in conjunction without being in the same house. They can also be in conjunction without being in the same sign. But when they are like towards the end of a sign, towards like the latter degrees of a sign, FYI, each sign has 30 degrees. When they are towards the latter degrees of a sign and another planet is towards the first degrees of a sign, they can also be in conjunction. So for instance, you can have your Venus at 28 degrees of Taurus and you can have your Mercury at 2 degrees of Gemini. We would also call that a conjunction. So they don't necessarily have to be in the same house or in the same sign. The important thing is to look at them being very close together. They're super close together in your natal chart. So that's the first thing that you would look at, I would say. So we're gonna get into questions a little bit in a little bit. Give me one sec, and then you can ask me stuff about your own conjunctions in your chart. Now, a pair of planets in conjunction are unable to see each other. Okay, so they are so close together that they cannot take the distance and look at the energy of the other planets. Therefore, their energy is manifested in a very subjective way. So as I said, it manifests as a third energetical product in your chart. It's like a third planet is birthed out of the conjunction of two planets. Usually, I would say, the conjunction is seen as a bit of a neutral aspect. So people are asking me, is it a positive aspect? Is it a negative aspect? I absolutely don't like to qualify aspects as being positive or negative. I like to qualify them as harmonious or more tense. But the conjunction is usually a bit of a neutral aspect. What tends to happen when you have a conjunction in your chart between two planets, that shows us that you have to somehow combine the energies of the two. Their energies are combined, and they give birth to a third product, so to speak, that kind of focuses you in a certain direction, especially if they are placed in the same sign or in the same house. Now, if you have more than two planets very close together, you probably have something that is called a stellium. You can see a stellium when you have 3 or more planets in the same house. It depends which astrologers you follow or like what school of astrology you follow. I call a stellium, which is an aspect pattern, when you have 3 planets in the same house in the same sign. So I don't take into account for a stellium planets that are a third planet that is in a different sign. So they have to be for a stellium in the same house and in the same sign. And Maria is asking me if you can have no conjunctions. Yes, that is possible. That is absolutely possible. So let's go through some examples. I know you've sent me some questions, and let me explain how conjunctions can manifest in your chart. Let's start off with Sun conjunct Venus. Now, how would we interpret this? It means that your sense of identity, I think Edward has asked the question, what happens when you've got Sun conjunct Venus? It means that your sense of identity and your ego, which is the sun, it's very much linked with the relationships that you're in. Because Venus governs relationships and how we relate to them. It also means that you embody within your identity the principles of Venus. Venus is the governor of beauty, of the aesthetic sense, of values, of art. So it means that all of these principles, Edward, can be part of your identity. I've also seen Sun conjunct Venus manifest, like Sun conjunct Venus in people's chart, manifesting as people who are visibly very beautiful. They're very aesthetically pleasing to look at them, especially if Sun conjunct Venus is in one of the more public houses, such as the 9th house, the 1st house, also the 10th house. Sun conjunct Venus identifies themselves very, very strongly with the amount of love that they receive in their life, I would say. Now, if you have Mercury, Mars, and Venus conjunct, so we're not talking about stelliums just yet. Let's take Mercury and Mars in conjunction. Mercury and Mars in conjunction manifest usually in people's lives by the individual using words as their weapon of choice. It also makes for someone who is very witty, very quick to respond. When they speak, they can say exactly like what's on the tip of their tongue. It can be associated with speaking on impulse, so very impulsive words, I would say. Mars conjunct Mercury can also manifest, especially if it's involved in some other tense aspects. It can be perceived sometimes as having a bit of an aggressive approach to communication, let's say. I'm not saying that the individual intends to be aggressive, but I'm saying the outside world might perceive them as being on the aggressive side when they speak. So they can be like a little rough around the edges when they communicate, and they don't mince their words. So I would say diplomacy when talking is not necessarily one of their main characteristics, I would say. Mercury conjunct Mars is also really, really good and thinks on their feet when it comes to periods of like crisis or in an emergency. You really want to have someone with Mercury conjunct Mars close at hand because their mind works super quickly and they know exactly what to do to find a solution. Now, if you've got Cancer Sun conjunct Mercury Sun. So that when we've got the Sun conjunct Mercury, I'm not going to talk about signs just yet. I'm talking about the energies of the planets. We have to combine the keywords that come to mind when we think of the energy of the Sun and the energy of Mercury. So Mercury governs speech. Mercury governs our logical mind. It governs our thoughts. And the Sun governs our ego, our hero journey, and our sense of identity. So someone with Sun conjunct Mercury identifies very strongly with the things that they believe in, identifies very strongly with their mind. Sun conjunct Mercury can also manifest itself as someone who is very good with words, has a way with words, I would say, and tends to be very attached from an ego point of view to their opinions. Let's take some more questions. Neptune-Uranus conjunction. Okay, so if we're getting into transpersonal planets, the transpersonal planets are Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus. These tend to manifest less on an individual level, irrespective of how close in conjunction they are. They manifest more at a societal level, and the individual tends to assimilate the principles of Neptune conjunct Uranus, or whatever like transpersonal planets were in conjunction at the time of their birth. It's kind of part of their subconscious, I would say. And usually when you have conjunctions or like any aspects between generational planets, they tend to manifest in your life as more of a fated kind of set of circumstances, I would say. They could manifest as things that seem out of your control. They could manifest as destiny, I would also say, because whatever happens in society seems to be out of our control, but at the same time we contribute to it and we assimilate it. So I would say generationally, Neptune conjunct Uranus can translate at a societal level, at a generational level, as revolutionizing the world of the artistic world, revolutionizing the creative world, not being afraid to send across like a very powerful, very strong, maybe even like a little bit anarchistic, anti-establishment messages into the world through the means of art. I would also associate Neptune-Uranus with experimenting with drugs, with experimenting with psychedelics, and seeing where that could take you from a societal level, seeing how society perceives them. Neptune conjunct Uranus could result in society perceiving drugs a little bit differently and maybe looking at them with more of an open mind. Uranus also governs technology, so Neptune conjunct Uranus can manifest as bringing technology into our lives in a very artistic way. Sun-Saturn conjunction, a really good one. So if you've got Sun conjunct Saturn in your chart, this may manifest a little bit as a fear of expressing who you really are. That fear can be a fear of being judged, I would say, first and foremost. The individual with Sun conjunct Saturn is very aware of how the world perceives them, and therefore makes a lot of effort into appearing like very well put together, very knowledgeable, like they know their stuff. They also appear as a bit of an authority in whatever it is that they are doing. They appear as someone who is very learned, who knows their stuff, and someone with a lot of credibility. Also someone who can uphold the status quo, I would say. Oh dear Lord. So does the conjunction only apply to the house the signs are placed in? As I said, for two planets to be in conjunction, they don't necessarily have to be in the same house. They can be in different houses, but they have to be very close apart, very close together when it comes to the number of degrees that they are at. So as I said, you can have a planet at like 29 degrees in like the fifth house and another planet at 4 degrees in the other house. So as long as they are no more than 8 degrees apart, then yes, they are in conjunction. And I would apply that energy to both houses indeed. So it's like you have to reconcile the energy of those two houses and the areas of like that those two houses govern through that particular conjunction. Now, if you have Uranus conjunct your moon, okay, I absolutely love this because I actually have Uranus conjunct my moon as well. It means that your sense of security, which is governed by our moon. So what makes us feel safe? What makes us feel looked after? What makes us feel secure? What makes us feel nurtured is very much dependent upon your sense of freedom and having the freedom to manifest yourself and having the liberty to express who you really are at heart. Uranus conjunct your moon can sometimes result in expressing and manifesting your emotions in a very explosive way that can like blow people apart. it can it can be quite hard for others to predict how a Uranus moon conjunction person can react emotionally to situations. I would also say Uranus is very much associated with insights from a higher dimension. So subconsciously, because the moon governs the subconscious, you may be receiving these insights, these strokes of genius that you can't really explain where they're coming from, but they are absolutely brilliant, and there's no way for the world to explain them, but they just come to you. Now, Frenchie, you've got Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, Mars together. Oh God, dear Lord. So as I said, this is a stellium. It sounds like a stellium. So if you have more than 3 planets in the same sign, in the same house together, you absolutely have a stellium. So you have to combine the meanings of all of these planets together, and an additional force comes to the fore. An additional force is born out of the combination of all of these energies. You can take them like one by one. So Jupiter conjunct Saturn, for instance. Jupiter conjunct Saturn is a very interesting one because Jupiter and Saturn represent 2 very opposite principles. Jupiter is the principle of abundance, whereas Saturn is the principle of restriction. Jupiter is faith, Saturn is structure, the day-to-day, the mundane, tradition. So Jupiter conjunct Saturn might have a very strong need to manifest their faith in a very practical, pragmatic way. They can also be attracted to religious systems, philosophical systems, systems that give them faith, belief systems that have a very clear-cut, precise structure. Jupiter conjunct Saturn can have a huge appreciation for tradition and be a proponent of tradition in the world and speak about tradition and have a huge amount of respect for the elderly, for the old ways, for the old school, for the establishment, I would also say. So those are just a few of the ways in which this aspect can manifest between Jupiter and Saturn. Now, if you have, let me go up. We're not looking at transits just yet, but you can listen to the explanation for the natal planets. For instance, Neptune conjunct the Sun. Irrespective of the fact that it's like natal or transiting, Neptune conjunct the Sun can bring a sense of confusion around your identity, around who you are, around how what you should be doing with your life. It can express as a sense of confusion around what your purpose in this world is, but at the same time, that can put you in touch with your spirituality, with the transcendental. It can also make you surrender to an extent your purpose and your path in this lifetime to a higher force. It might feel like it's out of your control, I would say. Now, if you have Moon conjunct Neptune, I also have Moon conjunct Neptune, Sarah. Guess what? So this actually makes for a very intuitive aspect, I would say, because the Moon is the subconscious, and Neptune is the transcendental. It has no limits. It's out of this world. It's the ocean. It's the seas. It's the universe. It's cosmos. So the energy of the subconscious blends super well with the energy of Neptune. So you might be super intuitive. You might have like flashes of insight, of knowing. A gut feeling is taken to like immense heights. But the downside might be, with the Moon conjunct Neptune, the Moon, let's not forget, also embodies our perception of our mother in our natal chart. So especially growing up, there might be the perception of the mother being somehow a victim, of being victimized for whatever reason in the individual's life. Georgie is asking whether Mercury trine Mars functions the same way as the conjunction. Not really, no. because we're going to get into trines in another session, but planets in conjunction form a third type of energy. Whereas, and they're not aware that they basically lose their initial kind of energy by themselves. They function as a third unit. Whereas in a trine, they're aware of each other's like presence. If you have, let's see. Karma Police James is asking me, what is your sun conjunct Rux? My sun is just by itself. It just stands alone. It's in a square with Pluto, but it's not in conjunction with anything. Moon conjunct ascendant. Okay, so if you have the moon conjunct one of your angles, let's take the ascendant. You wear your heart on your sleeve. Your emotions are beyond hiding. Like, people read your emotions on your face. It's like you are unable to hide your feelings from others, and it can make you feel very vulnerable in the face of the world, I would say. At the same time, moon conjunct the ascendant is perceived by the outside world as being a very motherly presence, a very nurturing presence, a presence that looks after others, a very caring person. So that's the impression that you make on people. So I would say, if you are in that type of environment where those qualities are appreciated, absolutely make use of them. Why not? Hello, Ali. Let's see some more questions. I've got so many. Thank you so much, guys, for sending me your questions. Oh, my nail polish, you like it? Thank you, ZZ Sly. What else do we have? Okay. Sun and Pluto in conjunction. That's a bit of a tough one, okay? Because it can make a person very much eager to get power in this lifetime. I mean, it doesn't have to be a tough one. It can make one very aware of the power dynamics in the world, and it can make one feel unfulfilled until they achieve a sense of like power and authority. And it could absolutely make the person like obsessed with a sense of power if it's not like kept in check. Now, if you've got Sun conjunct Jupiter, that's a beautiful, that's a beautiful conjunction for you to have, but it's, I would say, harder for others to deal with, because Jupiter expands everything it touches. So, on the positive side, it can manifest as an extremely charismatic person, a person who is very confident, has a very high level of self-esteem, very charismatic, especially if the Sun conjunct Jupiter is in a very visible house, such as the first house, the 10th house, the third house as well, the 9th house. But on the other hand, if you've got Sun conjunct Jupiter, it can make you appear quite arrogant at times to others. That's why I'm saying, like, keep it in check. It could make you appear as being full of yourself. And last time I checked, no one wants to appear full of themselves. But it does give you a great sense of confidence, and you own a room. And you can bluff your way through life, I would say. Your persona is quite, like, larger than life. And you have this innate sense of faith and optimism with Sun conjunct Jupiter in a bigger plan, in the bigger picture. You've got someone up there watching out for you, because let's not forget, in astrology, Jupiter is the equivalent of God. It's Zeus. It's like the mightiest force. So a really nice one, okay? Gandhi is asking, when planets are conjunct, do each have subdued effects? I wouldn't necessarily call them subdued. I would call them as having like a third type of effect, which is magnified in a specific area of your life. So that's the way I would look at it. Sun conjunct Pluto, Irit is saying magnetic personality, sexual, possibly manipulative. Yep, I tend to agree with that. Someone who is very much aware of the power that sexuality holds over the world, and that secrets and mysteries and demons and the dark side holds over everyone else. So Sun conjunct Pluto is very much aware of their dark side and of the world's dark side. Now, dark doesn't mean negative. It just means the part in us that comes from the beast within us, from the animal side within us. If the moon is conjunct your MC, I would say you are very much, your sense of security and your sense of internal harmony is attached to how you are perceived by the outside world and your public status. So you might be very sensitive to your reputation and how the world sees you. Uranus conjunct Neptune. Again, this is more of a generational one, so I'm not going to dwell too much on that, but it manifests more at a societal level, at the trends that we see in society, rather than on a personal level, I would say. And Saturn conjunct Uranus. Saturn conjunct Uranus is a very interesting one because they are both the rulers of Aquarius. Saturn is the traditional ruler of Aquarius, and Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius. So it feels that it might be the case that for people who have Saturn conjunct Uranus, they feel like they have to manifest in a very structured way, in a way that is acceptable to society, because Saturn has to do with the status quo and what is accepted and what's not accepted. The parts in them that are different, their uniqueness. So it's about finding a way of expression of what makes you unique, what makes you different, what makes you brilliant, and manifesting that in society. Now, Saturn conjunct Uranus usually also results in reform at a societal level taking effect through certain individuals. So people who have Saturn conjunct Uranus might be the catalysts. They might be those who implement sweeping change in society, changes that are innovative, that are progressive, but they could take a more autocratic approach. So you're not asking, it's not a democracy, change is coming and you are here to implement it, just deal with it. It's good for you, I'm telling you, so it's gonna happen. Uranus can be, in general, the energy of Uranus might manifest itself very strongly, and Uranus does not like opponents because Uranus knows better, because it's got its finger on the pulse when it comes to the future. So it's like, no, you've got no clue, go away. Venus-Mars conjunction. I actually really like this one. It means that you integrate very well the feminine and masculine energies inside of you. And FYI, everyone's got like feminine and masculine energies inside of them. I would also say Venus conjunct Mars tends to stand up for the things that are important to them in a very diplomatic way, in a way that doesn't burn bridges, in a way that is socially acceptable. They are also, Venus conjunct Mars are the fighters for justice, for what is fair. Jupiter-Venus conjunction, this is a very beautiful one, especially in the 7th house. Oh gosh, Daniela, you're very lucky when it comes to partnerships. You're going to be very lucky in this lifetime. So Jupiter-Venus conjunction might bring like very generous partners in one's life, and it might also bring partners who the individual can learn from, who the individual can broaden their horizons through this person. And Mars conjunct Neptune, now that's a bit of a tricky one because Mars wants to assert itself, whereas Neptune is a little bit like confused, foggy, it blurs the boundaries, the lines, it's not sure, it's floating. So with Mars conjunct Neptune, you might find it hard to assert yourself, to stand up for like what you believe in, and Mars conjunct Neptune is usually associated with being a little bit passive aggressive, of not being direct about the things that they feel like they have to fight for. It might also make the person feel like the victim, unfortunately, and they can attract a lot of bullies if they do not stand up for themselves, I've got to say. Now, I'm going to stop for a second with the conjunctions and let's talk a little bit about the oppositions, because I bet you've also got oppositions in your chart, and we are here to talk about both. So, going back to the circle, which is your natal chart, when we divide the circle by 2, the result is the opposition, aka planets that are 180 degrees apart. But again, we can apply an 8-degree orb, so they don't have to be like 180 degrees on the dot apart. They could be 172 degrees apart or 173 degrees apart. The number 2 is associated with polarity, and generally we tend to divide the world into opposites, into polar opposites, such as male and female, light and dark, good or bad. Therefore, the aspect of opposition between two planets tends to combine both sides of a coin, okay? So you look at things from both sides. Therefore, you can very clearly perceive the differences between these two energies of these two planets. The opposition is what we generally call a tense aspect, okay? And in the natal chart, it usually appears as like a line which is red. It tends to be red. And you have planets at like two opposite ends of the chart. Now, usually we have the planets that you can have in opposition are planets that are in Aries versus planets that are in Libra, planets that are in Taurus versus planets that are in Scorpio, planets that are in Gemini versus planets that are in Sagittarius, planets that are in Cancer versus planets in Capricorn, planets that are in Leo versus planets in Aquarius, and last but not least, planets that are in Pisces versus planets that are in Virgo. So usually what tends to happen with planets that are in opposition, because they are literal polar opposites, they're complementary to each other. So the principle of opposition is that it usually manifests itself in the sphere of human relationships. I would say the individual might project onto the other person one of the energies of the two planets that they have in an opposition aspect in their chart, because they haven't fully integrated it within themselves. So what we don't fully integrate ourselves, we tend to project onto others. So look for oppositions in your chart and let me know how they manifest in relationships in your life, because you might identify more strongly with one of the two principles that are in opposition. So let's say you've got the Sun opposite Mars. You might identify very strongly with the Sun principle, and you tend to project the Martian energy onto other people. So let's talk a little bit about your own oppositions. Moon opposing Jupiter. Very interesting, Camellia. So I would say this can manifest in the world as you projecting onto others either the principle of the moon or the principle of Jupiter. Usually we identify ourselves very strongly with the energies of the personal planets, such as the moon, the sun, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. And Jupiter is not a personal planet. So you might project the Jupiterian abundant energy of faith onto others. So you might actually attract individuals that seem like larger than life, individuals that have this aura of the sage, that have traveled a lot. It could also be individuals that are very preachy, that might want to teach you things. Whatever Jupiter touches, it magnifies. So you could come across, you could be perceived by others as having like very intense emotions that are out there for people to see on display. Now, if you've got Moon opposing Pluto, now this is a little bit of a tense one as well, I would say, because you can project onto others the principle of Pluto. And Pluto is associated with power, but also abuse of power. So you might attract people who can seem very, or who might actually try to manipulate you emotionally with the moon opposite Pluto. You can also attract your fair share of people who are very jealous, very territorial, who can become very obsessed with you. So this can make for some very intense relationships, moon opposite Pluto. Now, if you have your Mercury opposing Jupiter, well, this places an emphasis on, first of all, Mercury, how we speak, how we talk, how we think, our style of communication, and Jupiter, on the other hand, the principle of like abundance and faith. You could be accused by others of exaggerating, of blowing things out of proportion, of having this lofty way of communicating things, of making them seem like bigger than they actually are. Now, if you have the sun opposite Jupiter, the outside world might perceive you as this person with like a very big ego, who fills up a room and doesn't leave any more space for others to manifest themselves. So I would also say it's possible that you could attract all sorts of like gurus and people who can teach you and like open certain like knowledge paths for you when it comes to philosophy, religion, spirituality, politics. Sun opposite Jupiter might also identify very, very strongly with their religious beliefs, or they might try to dissociate themselves completely with their religious beliefs. Now, if you've got Mercury opposing your Saturn, you might hold your tongue. You might hold off from communicating what you actually think, and you might keep most of your opinions to yourself for fear of not being judged by others. And to be honest, you might attract some very judgmental characters, especially in childhood. So one of the parents, in particular the father, might have been like very strict when it came to expressing your thoughts and your opinions and where you stood on a certain topic, and that might have made you kind of like retreat and made you less open with sharing where you stand on something. Now, if you have Jupiter opposing Saturn, I actually, Crystal, have Jupiter opposing Saturn as well. The Jupiter opposition Saturn person can find themselves teetering between two different extremes. extreme optimism at times, and like this faith in the world and in everything, and like everything's gonna turn out well. And at the same time, fear of poverty in particular. Jupiter opposing Saturn can manifest itself as fear of material poverty, of material lack. Jupiter opposing Saturn usually has to work harder to achieve wealth, but it is nevertheless an aspect that can result in wealth. Jupiter-Saturn aspects generally can generate wealth, whatever the relationship between the two planets is. Hi, Ravi. Now, what else do we have? Jupiter opposing Pluto. Okay, so whatever you're afraid of, Georgie, is magnified. And whatever you become obsessed with consumes you on the inside. It can manifest in... I can call it obsession. It might manifest as an obsession with sexuality. It might manifest itself in an obsession with like certain like religious ideas or philosophical ideas or political ideas. So that's also very, very possible. And last but not least, your sense of faith might come from how much power you achieve and you get in this lifetime. And first and foremost, you might attract some very powerful individuals in your life that you are trying to emulate. So that's also a possibility. Moon opposing the ascendant, or Jupiter opposing the ascendant. Okay, so if you've got any planet opposing the ascendant, it means that you tend to attract that kind of person, a moon type person, so a very Cancerian person, a person who is concerned with like family and the past and tradition. Or in the case of Jupiter, someone who has like something foreign about them, like an international air about them, or a very preachy air about them, because Sagittarians can be very preachy, or people like ruled by Jupiter can be very preachy. You tend to attract these kind of people in relationships, especially romantic relationships, especially like also business relationships. So relationships where two people are on the same footing. They can be considered equals. Now, if you have James is asking me if my sun is opposite Jupiter. No, it's not. My Jupiter is opposing Saturn. If you have your Saturn opposing the MC. Okay, so you may have felt, especially in childhood, that there was a sense of lack. It could have been a lack of resources, of material resources. It could have been a lack of emotional understanding from the family. In any case, the environment that you grew up in might have not been very warm, very welcoming. Therefore, your focus shifts towards public life, towards achievement. With Saturn opposing the MC, achievement is blown usually out of proportion and tends to be the only thing that is valued in the family kind of environment, in the private life environment. So there may have been like a huge emphasis growing up on working hard and achieving and focusing on the goals rather than acknowledging people's feelings or emotions or anything like that. Now, if you have Mercury opposing Neptune, okay, so you can have like a very artistic way of expressing yourself, and you might find it actually a lot easier to express yourself in artistic, creative ways rather than through words. Depending on the other aspects to Mercury, I would say this might make for an individual who feels like they are misunderstood by others, so they have to like constantly explain themselves, like their message is lost in translation, or like their message is not strong enough to be perceived by others, I'd say. So yes, it might take longer for the rest of the world to understand you, but that doesn't mean that you have to give up. Mercury opposing Neptune can also have a love of dancing. And dancing can feel like a very cathartic activity, I'd say. Now, if you have Mars opposite Pluto, yeah, that's an interesting one. That is a super interesting one. Sorry, you're probably hearing like my cat's feeder, like just now. My apologies. So if you have Mars opposite Pluto, this is a very tense aspect, and it can manifest as experiencing actual abuse in relationships of people with authority and power abusing this power in a way that makes you feel powerless, in a way that makes you feel like you have no control over your life. Now, this can result in the long term as a very strong aversion and rage towards those in authority and those in positions of power, and therefore like fighting. It can result in the individual fighting against or like revolting themselves against people who have power and make use of it. Now, if you have a Saturn-Mars opposition, Angela, very interesting one, I have to say. It might feel, at least for part of your life, that traditions, the old way of doing things, or institutions, or the fatherly figure somehow stands in the way of you asserting yourself as a leader and fighting for your own survival, fighting for what gives you life, what energizes you, what is worth fighting for in this lifetime. So it can manifest as a battle, a struggle with those with authority, and also more at an institutional level, and tradition especially, because Saturn is the embodiment of the old way, of tradition, of the past. So you might feel like you have to fight against the past to really assert yourself, to stand up for yourself. Sun-Pluto opposition. You might feel like your sense of identity is actually being threatened by whoever's got power, and you might not deal well with those who hold any sort of like sway or power over your life in this lifetime. Therefore, you might really like try hard to achieve power, and to get in a position of power in this lifetime, I'd say. Oh, thank you, Stanley, for the super chat. So Sun, Venus, Jupiter ascendant, and South Node in Taurus, opposite Uranus in Scorpio. Let's take Sun opposite Uranus. So you have to take them one by one, basically, Stanley, to like analyze them. So Sun opposite Uranus might result in you projecting onto others, onto people that you interact with, onto people who you are in a relationship with, your sense of like freedom and what makes you feel different and what makes you feel unique. And you might attract a lot of people in this lifetime, Stanley, who fly their freak flag high, and at a certain point in your life, especially at the Uranus opposition, so around the age of 40 to 42, they might inspire you to fly your own freak flag high, I would say. Venus opposite Uranus might make for some very unpredictable relationships and very unpredictable partners, and you might feel like love or relationships or getting attached to someone kind of stands in the way of your personal freedom. So, guys, it looks like Instagram Live is kind of like stopping in 15 seconds. I didn't know there was a limit. Thank you so much for joining today, and I promise I will come back with a second session on aspects. I know this is cutting short, but bye. I can see that we are still live on YouTube. I had to go off of Instagram because it was ending. I'm hoping YouTube doesn't like end my live stream as well. Tina, thank you so much for the super chat. FYI, everyone, you can like show your appreciation and support for the channel by clicking on the super chat icon, which is at the bottom of the live chat. It's like, I think it's a dollar icon. So please feel free to do so if you want to. Now, thank you all once again for joining. I promise I'm going to do a couple of more sessions on aspects. We are going to take all major aspects one by one. It was very interesting to hear about like your own conjunctions and oppositions and whatever you have in your chart, and I'm hoping this has helped clarify some of your questions. Thank you to those who have moved from Instagram to YouTube. I love it. I'm gonna do like a separate session like to discuss squares, to discuss trines, to discuss sextiles. So today we've only covered conjunctions and oppositions. Now, if you are interested in a more in-depth analysis of all the aspects in your chart, don't forget that I offer natal chart readings as a service, and you can reach out to me on my website, written in the stars, astrology.com. I'm gonna leave a link in the description box, so please feel free to reach out anytime, and we can do like a full analysis of the big picture of your chart and how that manifests, both in your life, but also in the type of like people that you attract, in your relationships, and how you can work with the aspects that you have, because at the end of the day it's about working with the cards that you have been dealt. So once again, thank you so much, lovelies. It's been amazing. I love going live every single time, and your support is so important for me. Thank you, Deanna, for the shout out. You're brilliant. Thank you so much. And I shall be back soon. Have a lovely evening. Bye.